Hi again, I'm Mark Cruz from Nikon Canada, and I want to talk to you about how to get better portraits from your Nikon D5100. First things you got to think about is the lens selection. When you think about lenses, a lot of people gravitate towards this particular one here, the 50mm. It gives you a natural field of view when you're looking through your viewfinder. Additionally, this lens here has a very large aperture. Now what I'm going to do here is I'm going to take off the lens and show you what an aperture is. It's essentially the hole, okay, or the iris of the lens that can be either expanded or contracted. I now have the camera on aperture priority mode, and that's the little A here at the back of the camera. Now, old school users of photography would naturally put it on that setting because it allows us to change our aperture. So if we're looking at the back of the camera here, we can see there's a couple of numbers. Number you want to pay attention to is the number beside the letter F. That's the number that designates our aperture. And by rolling this wheel here at the back of the camera, you can see that number change. You can additionally see this symbol right here that essentially mimics what's happening inside of the lens. You can see that iris of that lens become smaller or larger. You'll also notice that as that hole gets larger, the F number is actually getting smaller. So that's kind of the relationship that you got to rationalize in your mind. Now, where do you want that aperture to be when you're taking portraits? Generally, you want it to be as wide open as it can get. Why do you want that to happen? Basically, when you're taking portraitures, you want to isolate your subject from the background. With a wide open aperture, you get the shallowest depth of field possible with the lens that you're using. So in this case here, this lens goes as low as f1.8. That gives you a very shallow depth of field and a very pleasing blur in the background, ideal for portraits. Another thing you want to investigate when you're using your D5100 is the colors of your photo when you're taking portraits. Typically you want to have softer, more muted contrast and saturation. So where you go to adjust that is your picture controls. Right here at the back of the camera, by default it's set to standard. What you want to do is put it on PT, that stands for portrait. And with this one they've taken the saturation contrast down just a little to be ideal for skin tones and for portraits. Now, that's if you want to do it manually. There's other modes in here that make it very easy for you to just point and click and take portraits without you having to think about all those settings. One of those is a dial right here at the top, naturally called portrait mode. So you put it in this mode here, it knows generally what you want to do and sets the camera to a wide open aperture. It might not be the widest open, okay, but it'll be generally wide open for you to get natural looking portraits. If you want to force the issue and control your aperture exactly, that's when you default to the aperture priority mode. Additionally, you can access other scene modes here. For example, one of them is night portrait. It knows that you're taking a portrait at night. It pops up the flash, okay, when you press the shutter halfway down and it's in a dark situation. Pop gives you enough flash for that fill-in flash for the portrait and makes the background nice and bright with that wide open aperture, bumping the ISO up a little bit. For additional information on the Nikon D5100, visit d5100.ca or visit any of our other YouTube videos exploring the other features of this camera. Thanks for your time. See you soon.